Hello, my name is Claire Westlake, and welcome to the very first recording of our social media masterclass. I am so excited to have you sitting across from me on the other side of the computer today. Before we jump in, I wanted to take a few minutes to tell you more about creative masterclasses. The goal of this class is to equip you, whether you're a professional or a beginner, whether this is your ministry or your business. Never stop learning, because the practice of this craft is always changing. I'm not a master. I'm still learning, but I do want to teach you what I know and, most of all, the things that I've failed at. This class and its curriculum is a collection of lessons and stories that our team has learned over the past few years. We will also talk about the practical skills and knowledge of how social media translates to the New Life Church style and format. The story of New Life Church began with a God-breathed calling to reach the state of Arkansas. Pastor Rick and Michelle Bezet made the move from Louisiana in November of 2000. Today, we continue to expand New Life Church across the state of Arkansas so people can encounter God and connect with others in an authentic and exciting way. New Life Church is a home, a place filled with the presence of God, where truth is taught without compromise and joy overflows. I've had the privilege to work with New Life on staff for nearly 4 years now, but I've been a part of the vision as a volunteer for a total of 8 years. When I started coming to New Life, it was right around the time I began becoming interested in photography. I spent 3 years in high school journalism, and I was on the yearbook staff. During the summer of 2012, right after I graduated high school, I interned with Creative for Photography and Video. I went to college to major in art and photography with a goal to become a professional photographer. I realized that the plan God had for me was much bigger than my desire to start a business of my own. This gift and interest in photography was something that could be used in a ministry. Shortly after that, I found my love for writing and began taking classes in digital media and publishing. In December of 2015, I graduated from the University of Central Arkansas with a degree in writing and an emphasis on digital and social media. Today I'm on staff with New Life Church Creative as a project manager. Day in and day out, I work closely with our designers, video editors, and social media volunteers to create the things that you see throughout the week and during weekend services. And that's just a little bit of my story. I can't wait to hear yours. At the beginning of each class, we take time to just dive into the Word and share a devotional together. This semester, I've been reading a lot from Ephesians, but before we go to Ephesians, I want to read Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for men, since you know that you will receive inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Ephesians 1 has been a scripture that I've been going to a lot lately. And it just constantly reminds me of what God is doing. And no matter what season of life I'm in, it's just really relevant to the situations I'm in and the things that I'm wanting to receive from the Word. So due to time today, I'm not going to read all of Ephesians 1, but I encourage you to go back, read it, and just let your prayer be that the Lord will give you an extravagant life and an extraordinary calling. For those of you that don't attend New Life Church, I wanted to still share these core values with you because they will help you better understand some of the best practices that we are going to go through. If you lead a social media team at New Life Church, continue to share these with your volunteers. If you are not a part of New Life Church, I challenge you to sit down and read through or write out what your core values are in your organization or business. These core values should always be the beginning and the end of everything that you do. Before you write, go back to them. When you write, before you publish, go back to them and make sure everything still lines up with your values. Holding these in place and remembering them will lead to more success than any metric or number will do. Just knowing that you're always representing and going back to your core values, that's going to keep your heart where it's supposed to be. So these are our core values at New Life Church. Everything that we write and do goes back to these core values. We believe that excellence honors God and inspires people. I'm going to talk about that later on, about how this specifically, we always go back to this one with social media. But each of these, from the value of a soul to a unified community, they're all represented in the best practices that we do. So if you don't have core values, I challenge you to sit down and before you even start creating content, figure out what those are. This is a question that we're going to constantly be coming back to over the course of this video, because if you don't know why communication matters, you're going to have a lot of questions moving forward. So we're going to break it down in a couple of different areas, but this specifically for New Life Church, this is why words matter. Anytime we're posting on social media, we are representing the church, whether this is from our personal accounts or a church campus account. And we're not just representing the church. We're representing Christians, and many people are making judgments based off of what we say. So it's always worth our time and effort to communicate with excellence. A couple of weeks ago, we were in a staff meeting with Pastor Rick, and he told us that he had 20 points to give us. Jokingly, we all laughed because we didn't think he was being serious about 20 points, but he definitely was, and I absolutely was so excited to write these down. And as I was writing them down, I was thinking of you guys and just how these things, they're top 20s for writers and speakers, but every point is so relevant to what we are doing each day on social media and on the internet. So I challenge you to sit down and go through these. The first one is to make sure that it's doctrinally pure but culturally relevant. This goes back to our core values. Respect the clock given to you. This goes more so as speakers when they have a timed, 30 minutes to share a message. But I definitely think that we can think about it as well when we are preparing things for our teams. I was reminded of it just earlier this week when I was putting together a promotion plan, and, everything, we start rolling out this plan in a week, but I wanted to give my team enough time to sit down and brainstorm and think about the content for themselves. So to respect the clock, I made sure that I gave it to them with plenty of time. This third one, spend time with the Holy Spirit before you prepare to write or speak. I have been called out on this so many times. I remember a few months ago, we launched this campaign called Prayer 714. And I just felt this very heavy burden on my spirit as we were getting ready to launch this on social media. I couldn't find the words to use. I was battling in my spirit with, if the message that we were about to publish, if it fully supported the vision behind Pastor Rick. And I was telling my director about this burden. She said, Claire, have you prayed about this? And I just think it's so funny. We get caught up in the day-to-day of our jobs and our roles, and something so mundane and simple as making a post on social media. It needs to go back to prayer, because the post that you're sending out is going to reach hundreds, if not thousands of people. And you want to make sure that what you are sharing, if it is reflecting the heart of God, that it's something that the Holy Spirit has given you to share, whether it's from your heart or your pastor's heart. So this point, I think, is very important to social media and to our teams and the values that we are bringing to the table. Number 4, don't let your material overuse the word I. Number 5, we lean toward the New Testament. If you're going to fall towards grace. Number 6, be real because fake is exhausting. Pastor Rick wrote a book on this and just the authenticity of being yourself. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later on. The next one, don't be an imitation of someone else. This is so easy today in the culture that we live in. We're constantly comparing ourselves to other accounts, other churches. Are we doing as well as the next person? Be yourself and do the things that represent you and your heart, your personality, the personality of your pastor. Let that be who you are bringing to the table each day when you are sending out content. Let everything you do be about Monday through Friday, not just Sunday. This is so easy for churches. We build ourselves up to the weekend. It's all about Sunday. But make sure that you're reaching out and using your accounts Monday through Friday in a life-giving, encouraging way. Write and speak from the overflow of what you know. Don't post about things that you don't understand. Know what you are against, but speak what you are for. Next, Jesus is the lifter of their countenance. Let Jesus be the thing that your words always point back to. This next one, always have an altar call. This might be a little difficult for social media because you can't necessarily have an altar call at the end of every post. But every once in a while throughout your week, I challenge you to put something out that is uplifting and does bring a challenge to your audience of, can I pray for you? Or is there anything we can do for you today? This next one, be fun. It's easier to be around life. Always so much easier to be around life. And we learned this lesson the hard way through social media. It's easy to put on a professional, face. We have it all together. But show that personality that is behind the screens, especially the personality that is on your stage. If your pastor is always fun, let that be a part of your post as well. Have notes you can recall and understand. This is so important for our roles. If your pastor is speaking or your leader is speaking, constantly take notes that you can go back to throughout the week or months down the road when you're wanting to go back and remind yourself, the vision behind what you were doing. Lift up the name of Jesus. People don't need self-help or motivation. They need Jesus, and we need to always point back to that. Speak with your personal level of authority, not above that. When you fail, get back up and move on. Be aware of your audience. I feel like we're going to hit this one on the head with a hammer this week as we go through some of the content that's left in this presentation. But being aware of your audience is first and foremost the most important thing with social media. Always listen back to your worst moments. That's where you learn and improve. I'm going to tell you a couple of ways that I've failed, and it's funny because the people that I work with and our volunteers, they don't let me forget these either. It keeps us laughing, and it keeps us remembering that we don't have it all together and we're not the best at this. So always go back to those moments that you failed, and you'll have some great stories. The last one, always be training others so that you can step out of your role. This is really important. You're not going to be able to do social media all by yourself. You're going to need a team, whether that's a team of writers, photographers, or publishers. So constantly be thinking of others that you can invite along to the table with you. Our next section is... So these are the NLC communication standards that we go by. There was a longer list that I used to present during our social media classes, but I tried to pull it down to some of the core 5 pieces that I always go back to. And these are them. And over the next couple slides, we're just going to break them down even more and then break them down with examples. I'm a visual learner, so I learn most from seeing examples of what others are trying to explain. So I'm hoping that these visuals will really show you some of the standards and best practices that we try to put in place. So if you'll read over these, we'll come back to them and we'll break them down from here forward. So the first one is excellence honors God and inspires people. One of our best practices in doing this is always pointing back to the weekend. We use social media to lead people into a growing relationship with the unchurched. Promptly, after each Sunday service, we share the weekend message on Facebook. And then we also do this on Instagram by posting a recap, whether it's of the points from the pastor that spoke that morning, or just reminding people that the message is available online. Our weekly message post on Facebook is the most engaged post we get all week. And I just think it's so funny because a year ago, this wasn't something that we did regularly or paid attention to, but through making it an expectation for ourselves, others are expectant and know that each Sunday afternoon they can go to our Facebook page and find the link there. And what I love most about this is the organic side of it, of people sharing and commenting and liking it. So with the Facebook algorithm, others, the unchurched that aren't within our walls, are learning and seeing this content each week. One of my favorite stories is a couple of semesters ago when I was teaching this point in our social media masterclass. We had a girl that, raised her hand after I told how this was very important to us. And she shared her story about how she, prior to a couple of months ago, she was not coming to New Life Church. She had never stepped foot within the front doors of our church. But because one of her friends was sharing the weekend message each weekend on Facebook, she finally took the time to click on it and see what it was all about. So this girl who had never stepped foot in our doors, she came to church because of a friend who was constantly sharing on social media. And then semesters later, there she is sitting in our class, learning about the values and expectations of why we New Life Church are on social media. So I just think it's so cool how a lot of these things go full circle. And so once you start trying out things, you're going to start hearing those stories about what worked well and the stories that were behind them. Our next point is that we have personality. This was a hard one for me to learn because when we first started using social media for the church, I thought that we had to be professional, and I thought that we had to look like, we were very formal, and humor was always very, very hard for us to post because I didn't know how to post it with excellence. With our personality, we let it shine in our communication. We're authentic, informal, sincere, positive, and fun. And the best way that we do this is by highlighting the family. Specifically, any posts that we do of the Bezet family, those are our most engaging posts. And here on the left, you see a picture of Jack Bezet. Rick and Michelle just became grandparents, and it's one of those things, that our church and our congregation for years has been praying with them for. And the day that Jack was born and this was posted on social media, I haven't seen a response like this in such a long time. On Facebook, I think we got a lot of comments and a lot of just people congratulating them. But I just think it's so cool that anytime we do share something about the Bezet family outside of weekend services, people love seeing that behind the scenes feel, and it shows them more so who their pastors are throughout the week and not just on the stage. This post on the right is from our Fayetteville campus. During our big screen series, we give our campuses this graphics package and promotion plan, and they are free to use it how and whenever they want. But what Fayetteville did for this particular weekend for Big Hero 6 is went out and bought a Baymax costume and went around downtown Fayetteville, taking photos and just inviting people to church in a new way. Baymax will be making a guest appearance, and I just thought it was so cool and so fun to not only see this invitation, but here in the photo you see the campus pastor's children. So again, pointing back to family is always a great opportunity to show some personality. Another way to show personality is to just have fun. Here on the left, you see one of our high school students, Ethan Dolan, and they had a event for our high school students one week. I believe it was a Space Jam basketball theme, and they're there the night before setting up the environments and the look and feel of everything, and decided, we're going to paint Ethan's face like a basketball. And this is just such a cool way to promote services outside of using a graphic, but also showing the students what to expect. So this is so fun, and always uses it as an example to have personality. On the right, you see a picture of Pastor Rick and Michelle. This is again from our big screen series. And I remember when I found this photo and I was getting ready to write up the caption, I was so scared because I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be making fun of Pastor Rick with this post? But His fear of heights is something that Pastor Rick always talks about on stage, and it was just such a fun, playful moment to be able to play off of that. And with that sermon that weekend, he was in the mountains, he was on Mars for the movie The Martian. We went out to some mountains in Nevada, and it was just so cool to play off of this photo and step away from, the heavy scripture and message behind big screen and just show something fun and behind the scenes about what it's like to be with Pastor Rick on those video shoots. Our next example is to always get a second set of eyes on it. This screenshot is actually a graphic that I made for our team during our first semester of Masterclasses. And if you notice, the word environment is completely misspelled. But what is even funnier is that as I was creating the content for this presentation, was going back and looking through some of our content, and I found this one, and nobody ever noticed that the word environments was misspelled. So if you go on our hashtag, you'll still find this today. But yeah, so always before you publish, if you can, send your write-up or send your graphic to someone and just say, hey, do you mind checking in on this to see if there's anything that I missed? It's a very quick and easy step, and it's very important to always get a second pair of eyes on it. Have a proofreader to look over your piece, see if there are any typos, misspelled words. This isn't just a best practice. I think this is very much a must practice. It'll save you in the long run. Our next communication standard is quality words, not quantity. We say less to communicate more. I always use Twitter as an example for this because, 140 characters, you have to communicate less at all times. And on the left is an example of when we first announced, the month of Year of the Bible. And there's a lot of steps to take in this, but we had to find a way to, pull it all down. How can we describe it in as less words as possible? On the right, you see a photo from our Hot Springs campus, and what I love most about this is the caption. It points back to the photo, but it lets the photo do the explaining for you. It lets the photo communicate the story that you think or feel from seeing this image, and it's just so heartwarming and just a great way to, end a Sunday morning. So we keep it brief, knowing that people are more likely to engage with concise content. This is what I always remember when I go back to why we say less is more. Cut your content. Avoid redundancy and any wordiness. Once you write a post, see if you can eliminate without losing any more meaning. We don't load people down with too much at once. Events are a great example of this. There's so much we can communicate within that first post. Give them every detail, every website, every write-up that they need so that they have all of the information at once. But sometimes it's fun to just throw a little bit out there and cause some curiosity and anticipation to know more. We do this a lot with Woman Conference, just putting out the look and feel that it's coming up, we're 1 month away, and we usually try to find a fun way to spread out content throughout the course of a couple of months. Christmas here on the right is another example. We did this one at the beginning of December last year, and it's just simple. You see our hashtag and we say that Christmas is coming. You have the wreath, which was a very heavy visual in all of our graphics, but even here in this photo, you don't really know that, and you don't really see the full visual elements of what is to come. So you can show some anticipation and just cause a little bit of interest by putting out something that kind of doesn't show too much. So maybe you need to delay communicating one message so that another has a better chance of getting through. So space things out over a course of a time. Or it might mean you only present the first step in a process instead of 5 actions at one time. Another best practice is avoiding insider lingo. And the best example I have of this is with our student ministries. We have names for each ministry. High school is Real Life, middle school is 412, our kids, Kid Life, and someone outside of our church might not know what Real Life and 412 is. So anytime we do a post about a student ministry, from our main church account, I try to recap what that ministry is. Who is the audience? Is it high school students or is it middle school students? So let your audience know. The majority of the people that follow you don't step foot into your services, so they might not know who you are necessarily speaking to or posting about. Another example of insider lingo is earlier this year, we started an event called NLC Family Time. And the goal of this event was just to bring our whole church together once a month and have worship, be in the Word. But as we started promoting NLC Family Time, we started to see a lot of confusion. Now, we thought this was a good name because our congregation has been used to the hashtag NLC Family. We use this a lot with just storytelling and highlighting key family moments within the church. So we assumed that NLC Family Time would be a great word to brand this event with. Well, a lot of the confusion came out, like, am I supposed to bring my whole family? Is there going to be childcare? Is there just a lot of questions that caused confusion? So we stepped away from the name NLC Family Time and moved forward with the name Night of Worship. I think that kind of speaks more for itself. And yeah, so that's another great example is as you're naming events, think about what is going to be easiest for your audience to understand. Our next point is, does it inspire and does it inform? One of our best practices is that we try our best not to have a language that is selling. So with events that have admission or registration, we try to find a way around it to, we advertise that is necessary, but we also try to just, I don't like posting a caption that says, hey, this event is $50. More so, I would prefer to have people take that next step to visit a link and sign up and find out registration on their own. So when we are promoting signups and registrations, we usually try to show more of the behind the scenes feel. So here on the left, you see a picture of our Collide team traveling from campus to campus, visiting students and helping them sign up for our Collide conference or student conference that happens each summer. So, but this best practice has kind of changed. We rolled out our online store this year, and so once that came around, I was like, okay, so I kind of have to change some of the way that I approach this because we are going to be selling things or giving people the opportunity to buy merch and online purchases. So the best way to do that is always start with vision, the why behind, what you're selling or what you're doing. I remember when we started posting about the Arkansas God Sees merch, I got a question like, why are you selling things? Where is my money going towards? And so I actually had to do a little bit of research to find out that the funds for all of the merch that was being purchased, it goes back into the Arkansas God Sees campaign. So you might use some of that. I don't know if Collide Conference or if your conference, like if the funds for that goes towards your event or maybe it goes towards scholarships for something else. But if you are selling something, do some research and figure out where that money is going toward. And it might be a great opportunity or piece of information to include into your write-up. Next is that we communicate what we want for people, not what we want from them. We're not giving people to-dos, we're presenting them with opportunities. So life group launches, commitment cards for giving, we're presenting them with opportunities. We're not telling them that they have to move forward in this step. So these are two examples, great examples of how I think that our church has done this in the past. And so I just challenge you, instead of asking people to do things, invite them to come to life group launches. Invite them to fill out a card or move forward on a next step. This is a new best practice that we have added in the last couple of years, is that we always invite others to join us. We invite them to be a part of what we are doing. We first did this for Easter, and the way that we did this is we sent out a bunch of flags, these risen flags. They went along with the theme and vision for Easter. Emailed 10 of them, or not emailed, we mailed 10 of them to each of our social media managers at each campus and asked them to pick their most influential, most encouraging, most engaging people on social media and just pass it out to them. And it was a really short, simple prompt to have them share, what Risen meant to them or what Easter meant to them. And I didn't have a whole lot of expectations for it. I knew we were going to get some responses, but the responses that we got back from it, I was just completely mind blown. The stories that started coming in, the paragraphs and essays of captions, the things that were being posted were stories that we would have never been able to do on our own. And, like this photo that is here on the left of Kelly, she posted that on her own account, on her personal account. So all of her friends and followers saw what Easter meant to her. And at the end, she kind of mentioned New Life Church Easter services. So not only are we reaching all of our church followers, but she's reaching all of her people as well. So this whole new idea of reaching people that would never be reached from the church account. So inviting others to share the content that you were hoping to post is a great opportunity. Year of the Bible was this way for us as well. So we had a hashtag throughout the entire year for people to post their moments in the Word and in their quiet time. So you were seeing more of the organic day-to-day look and feel of what Year of the Bible was, not just what we were communicating from the stage or from our accounts, but what others were experiencing throughout each week. The next step, or the next best practice, is to always have a goal. Always have a goal with everything that you are doing, and go back to that goal when you start and when you complete your post. Our first goal is that we are advocates for our audience. Our communication makes people's lives easier, not more difficult. We remind them of any resources that are available or upcoming events. For every post, before you do anything, determine the goal. Do whatever you need to do to gain clarity about the desired outcome and keep it in front of you during the entire creation process. These two examples on the left, you have a post about our online services. And what I love most about this photo is that it was taken from a girl in our church who just after service went to a coffee shop. You see the service guide, you see the Bibles, you see the notes. And at the time, I didn't really know what to do with this photo, so I saved it, asked her permission if we could use it, and a couple of weeks later went back to it and used it to promote the weekend services. And so it's not just a graphic or a generic post. I feel like it just shows so much more life and so much more purpose. On the right, we wanted to post about our vision night for an upcoming campus, and we did have graphics for this that I hadn't used. But I wanted to show more of the behind the scenes. I feel like that's a lot of our goal, is to always show the church, what's happening that they usually don't get to see. So this is a building plan from the Greenbrier campus, and we use that to promote the vision night. So one of my core goals is to just always think of our audience and what they want to see. I want to follow an account that is visually pleasing and fun and informative. So that's always my goal when we do a post, is to have that set before me. How can I help support our audience better? We're user-friendly. We answer who, what, when, where, how, and why. We include easy-to-find information for any next steps. On the left, you see one of our very first posts we did about Year of the Bible, and there was a lot of vision to cast in that first post. So we had to be very intentional about telling them, when this starts, where to find your bookmark, and how and why we're going into 2016. asking our church to be in the Word daily. On the right, you see an example for our call to action on the weekend of prayer. This was right after the week earlier this year when our country faced a lot of shootings and just a lot of mayhem in our nation. So on a Friday afternoon, we decided to cancel our big screen series and go into a weekend of prayer. So there was a lot of information and a lot of vision to share in this post. So before this was sent out to all of our campuses and to our people, we had to make sure that the information was easy to understand and the steps about what, when, where, and how were answered right there in that caption. With our goals, I also like to add an evaluation step. So a great example here is our video message on Facebook that I was telling you about earlier. We wanted to make sure that we were reaching the amount of people that we could each week when we were posting. So we were finding that there was a course of a couple of hours where it was best to post, and that's usually around 1 and 2 o'clock that we got a lot of our views. So because we added that evaluation step and we started taking notice of our stats and how many people were reached, post clicks, time posted, we were able to say, moving forward, this is the hour that we need to send this out each week if we want to reach as many people as possible. Once the post goes out, it's important to always look back and ask whether it met its intended goal. What can we learn for future posts? Next, know your audience. I feel like I've kind of hit on this one a couple of times, but the group we're talking to determines how we approach our communication. What is their experience with us? Put yourself in their shoes and communicate based on this perspective. So here you see a screenshot of what it looks like when you go into your insights on Facebook. You can see how what percentage your fans are female and what percentage are male. What are their ages? What cities are they in? So here it's a win because the cities listed on the right are all of the cities that we have a New Life Church in. Except Dallas, Texas. That's actually makes me curious. Why are there so many people viewing us from Dallas, Texas? Do we need to follow up and figure out where that's coming from? But also what I think is very important here is that you see that the largest percentage is from the ages 25 to 34. So I know that our audience is not necessarily high school students, especially if you look at 13 through 17. That is very, very low. So anytime that I want to post about a student event or a Collide conference, I go to Instagram because I know that our audience is there. Content more driven for the adults or the younger adults, I go to Facebook. I still go to Instagram, but Facebook is more intentional for that 25 to 34 or above range. So I challenge you to sit down and know your audience and just try to figure out what those stats are for your accounts. Choose the right channel. Your messaging goals should determine the channel you use. For example, if people need to take action online, providing a link in your communication might be the best choice. So Twitter is a good example. If you're going to post a link, you might want to send something out through Twitter or Facebook. Right now, Instagram doesn't give us that capability. You can always do like a link in profile thing, but even choosing your right channel, when we talked about this in class last week, in our social media class, someone had a question, is it appropriate to post the same things on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram? Link everything to where Instagram shares to Facebook and Instagram shares to Twitter. I would highly encourage you, if you have the time to do this, post different content to all the channels because you know that your audience is going to be following you on all three. So if they get done scrolling through Instagram and they jump onto Facebook, they don't want to be seeing the same things they just saw on the other account. So try to post some different things on your different channels. For Instagram, we try to post more behind the scenes. For Facebook, it's more of that informal, or not informal, the more formal information and videos and things like that don't necessarily translate well on Instagram. Next, consider your context. Where's your content going to live? What else is being talked about there? Does what you're communicating conflict with that? Does it duplicate that? Is it out of place? This example here in this screenshot is from our Arkansas God Sees series in 2015, and I think this is overall my favorite plan that we've ever gone forward with. Is we had this foyer installation with a map of each city. So Cabot had a map of Cabot, Little Rock had a map of Little Rock, Fayetteville had a map of Fayetteville, and we asked each person to put a pin on the place in their city where they feel like they are making a difference, whether that's their home, their work, or their school. And so we had photographers and interviewers set up in the foyer that were capturing some of these stories, and we shared them on social media. So what I love most about this is that someone can go back through our account and see these stories and really see the vision of the Arkansas God Sees come to life. Another example of why we consider our context is that your accounts and your profiles, they're your portfolios. And someone who has never seen your church, they're going to come to your account, and that's where they're going to find out most who you are and what you do. Consider your accounts the front doors of your church. I mean, this day and age, so many people go on websites or social media accounts before they even step foot in a door to figure out, what does this place look like? What am I going to experience? So always make sure that the content that is living on your accounts, you're proud of it, and you want people to constantly come back to your archive and see it. We're back to that question about, why does communication matter? So whether it's getting people to take part in an event or try out our church for the very first time, communication can help us reach these goals. And I think each of those best practices that we went through kind of explain that. Our social media values, best practices, and guidelines are here to help us and remove as many obstacles as possible that might get in the way of people taking their next steps. That's always the first thing in mind for me, is how am I going to help someone take their next step? And I don't want to be the person or the post or the thing that stops them from taking their next step. It's going to happen sometimes, but let that be your goal, to always think about that one person. So at this point in our presentation, we're going to kind of shift, and I wanted to tell you a story about a lesson that I learned from experience. About 2 years ago, when we first started using social media, we didn't really know why we were using it. We just knew that we needed to. So we used it a lot for promotion and advertising, but we weren't necessarily at the point where we were telling stories, because we didn't know that we needed to. And when I was going through this restless stage of just trying to figure out what was next for us, what new things can we try out, I remembered writing this quote down from Pastor Rick during a message or a sermon that he was sharing. And he was talking about the vision of New Life Church. And as we grow larger, thinking about how are we going to grow smaller, as we're going into more cities and we're going into more communities, how do we still have that small feel to who we are? And he said we need to focus everything on the idea of building relationship. And this is just something that I always come back to, and that I always remember, that everything we do on social media, and any other creative elements that we are doing to help support the church, the things we do on weekend services, this always has to go back to the idea of building relationships. That's why we're here. So in the past, this is what our Instagram feed used to look like. And again, like I said, it's just, we didn't know that we were doing anything wrong. We were just doing what we thought social media was supposed to be used for, and that was promoting and advertising our events and services. So you see a lot of graphics. To me, it just, you look at this and, like, from the outside perspective, I look at this and I'm like, wow, they are really all about themselves. Like, they love to promote their events and they just really want to get me in their doors. And like I said, we didn't know that we were doing anything wrong. But now when you go to our feeds, it looks more something like this. And this is the whole graphics versus photos conversation that I'm constantly having with our teams. Photos show your personality so much more. Photos show life, and photos show people. And Photos help you show your audience that you are for them. You want them to be a part of what you're doing, and you want them to know that this church, it's about them. It's not about you. I was in a training about a year or two ago, and we gathered in a room during a Sunday morning service, and we were going through just liking and commenting on some photos that we were seeing in our news feed, and just essentially learning some of the best practices of why we do what we do. And so I was going through our Instagram account, some of the people that we follow, and I was going through and, liking photos of like people posting in weekend services, kids ministries, different things like that. And I passed this photo, and the person stopped me and they said, okay, so why would New Life Church like this photo? Like, why didn't you like this photo? And without any hesitation, without even pausing to think about, what I was going to say, the first thing that came out of my mouth was, it's not about us. And as soon as I said it, I realized that my heart was in the wrong place. It's not about us. So that's why we should be liking and commenting on these photos that our people and our family and our leaders are posting, because it's not about us. It's not just about weekend services and events. It's about the day-to-day life. What are people doing with their families? What are people doing with their friends? What are they doing at school? We communicate from the stage that all of these things are important and valuable to us, that during the Monday to Friday, that's when people are making a difference in their communities. If we are encouraging them to do that, why would we not help support and celebrate them in those things that they are sharing? So focusing everything on building relationship, this is when it shifted for me. I started realizing that I needed to like more photos like this, because that lined up with our vision and values. It's not about us. Our goals were no longer using our accounts to just promote or advertise an event, but using these platforms to celebrate, congratulate, and give life in a way that we had never been capable of doing on social media. We didn't know that this was possible, but now that we do, it is something that is always on the front and the beginning of everything that we do. So going forward, I do want to give you guys some homework before we start talking about content and what apps to use and how to build a team, is that I want you to figure out what your best practices are and what are your communication values, because these are the things that you need to always come back to. And if you don't know why you do what you do, you're not going to be able to be successful moving forward. So before we start talking about the what, I really want to challenge you to think about the why. So thank you so much for tuning in today. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. And so next week, or in the coming weeks, the classes, we're going to be talking about how to build a team and how to put out some really great content. So again, thank you so much for tuning in.